Yeah, me and Shane became really good friends, and we started hanging out, and I was actually a member of the original Mean Street Posse, which were the same people, but it was the behind the scenes,
Yeah,
like they were the Mean Street Posse before they were the Mean Street Posse, and
yeah.
I was a honorary member.
And we are back for another casual conversation with the classic. I'm here with a very special guest, someone that I was a big fan of growing up, being a 90s kid. None other than the only Raven. How are you doing today?
Good, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We got tons to talk about. You have your documentary coming out on November 18th on Amazon Prime, Nevermore, The Raven Effect, which I had the pleasure of kind of seeing early. Great documentary. Great to see you spotlighted like that. Um, and we'll talk about that. But first things first, I ask everybody this just because I am the wrestling classic and I started my stuff all on classic wrestling, and my audience is always of interest. I just want to know for you personally, what were your earliest memories of professional wrestling? Like, what did you remember first seeing for you?
Chief J Strongbow.
Yeah, yeah,
I loved watching him go in the war dance. Like he'd get beat up, and then like you'd hope he would get beat up so that he would get good to go on the war dance, which he did every time. But you didn't know that as a kid. But so he would go on this. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but
I am. I
it
am.
was his war dance. He would like all of a sudden go into the no cell. He would start doing like a little Indian dance, or what we thought was an Indian dance at the time. I have no idea if it is, but like the legs going up and down and bent over a little bit and going, and he'd start shaking his head, and then he'd get attacked from behind, and the guy would blast him, and he'd just keep shaking it off, and then the guy would blast him, and he'd shake it off some more, and then he'd blast like a third time, then he'd shake it off and come back with a chop, and then a chop, and then I forget what he would do next. I don't know if it was always the same as 100 years ago, and then he would end up putting a sleeper in the guy and putting him out.
See, like, is it?
It was so exciting, not to interrupt you, but it was so
Yeah,
exciting because the Superman comeback is the best. Like,
yeah.
if I was ever going to be a top baby face, like for a long time, I would have worked in the Superman comeback. But
Which,
I but
which is
I but I'd rather have been a heel, and the Superman comeback is no good for a heel.
no, no, no. But like, that's now that you say it like that. Like, for those that don't know Chief J Strongbow, seen his work, like, it was basically pretty much like hulking up before hulking up. Like, they would be hitting
It was
him, and he'd be
better. It was
doing the
better.
dance.
It was
Yeah,
more like the Warrior.
it was. But like,
Because
he'd
I
be
think they
doing
wanted
the
because I think they wanted the Warrior to do that. When Hulk would Hulk up, he would it looked kind of spastic a little bit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
and it just like it was still good, but it wasn't like Chief J Strongbow. Like you could believe as a kid that Indians have magic powers. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And that he could summon the powers and not sell any, and stop feeling pain, for the next few minutes, and make his comeback. It was the best one, the best Superman comeback besides his was to me was Lawler in Memphis.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
But what he would do when he would turn heel is he'd pull the strap off and then he'd take a face plant
Yeah.
because he's a
Like,
heel.
he
So
like he was about to do it, and then he'd take the face plant.
yeah, it was
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, yeah. It's awesome though, because that is true. Like, there's always like, even being East Indian, like, Punjabi Sikh. So like, I just watched a documentary on like Gama Singh, and it was the whole idea of like, back in the '80s and stuff. If you were from like, if you were like Aboriginal Native Indian, or if you were from Asia or something, like, you had powers, you could do things like,
I always thought it'd be hilarious, like if when they gave some award, they had all the like Indian wrestlers show up
yeah,
and give Tatanka some award when I was the producer.
yeah. I remember that in the early
And
'90s.
yeah, in the early '90s, yeah, and uh, and I remember it was Chief J Strongbow and I guess Billy White Wolf, and it was really an Indian. He wasn't Hindi. He was what was he?
Iranian, maybe.
Yeah, Iranian. Sheikh Adnan
Yeah.
Al Casey also was, but he played an Indian for 100 years before that.
Well, wasn't Strongbow also like Italian or
Yeah,
something,
he
or
was
not?
Italian. Yeah, he was Italian.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's
But I
funny.
thought it'd be funny if they had all these Indians there, and then Gama Singh comes running in with a sword and starts cutting people to the ashes, slicing and dicing. And then they go, and then all of a sudden he stops and goes, "Oops, wrong Indians."
That would have been jokes. It would have been jokes.
You couldn't do it, but it'd be hilarious.
No, for sure. What made you want to pursue professional wrestling? Like, what made that decision? Where, like, we heard about your early life, about your college years and the friends and being the center of attention, and then you being a Marine. But like, what made you go, okay, I'm actually going to do this professional wrestling thing?
I did my full 6 years of my
term. Okay.
Yeah, and I was honorably discharged. So but I only went in the reserves. I didn't do active duty. I went to the same boot camp as everybody and I went to infantry school after that. And then I went into the reserves because I didn't want to go full time. I just wanted to see how tough I was,
Yeah.
So, but what was the question?
When did you decide that you wanted to pursue professional wrestling?
I always wanted to do it when I was a little kid, when I was 9 or 10, but it's not something that people go into, you know what I mean? It's not something, especially I was a skinny Jewish kid, you know what I mean? So 120 pounds, after 2 years of working out, I was 153 pounds with 11-inch arms and 17-inch thighs, which is ridiculously skinny, but I also had like love handles. So, so I had no build whatsoever. And, so I never thought about it seriously, but by the time I started lifting weights and by the time I started growing and taking steroids and finally started growing, I was 220 when I graduated college. And I was like, I don't want to be 50 years old going, man, I should have done this. So I'm going to go try. And if I failed, then I'll still be a success because I tried.
Yeah. So
except unfortunately, I held myself eventually I started holding myself to a higher standard so that when like I said, if I thought that if I didn't make it, I'd still be a success. That's how I originally thought. But as I gained in town in the business, then I stopped feeling that way and started thinking of myself for holding myself to a higher standard. And so by the time I was done, before I went to TNA, I was already feeling like my career was a failure because I wasn't at the top of the WWE, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous, especially coming from the thought process I started with.
Yeah. Which is insane because if you really look back to the beginning, you were still finding yourself, but you wanted to be in it. Tell me about the Scotty the Body character. Why was that initially your initial character, and what were you looking to do?
Well, I wanted to be a chicken shit heel. I love chicken shit heels. Yeah. And they're fun, they're funny, they get great heat, and everybody's a tough guy, you know what I mean? And I'm not, I was 220 pounds when everybody was 280, Yeah. So I wasn't a big guy. Now I'm 240, 250, and I'm bigger than, like now the average guy's 200, or if that, I guess. So at least that's what I see on the indie shows. I don't watch TV. I don't watch wrestling on TV anymore, but
yeah.
That's a whole other subject, but yeah. So where did I get lost at? I made so many left turns. I got lost on my.
Oh, well, like being Scotty the Body, as you were.
Scotty the Body.
You wanted to be a chicken shit heel, so
right.
You were acting like you were bigger than you were.
Right, and that's why. And so I was a big fan of Jesse the Body Ventura's commentary.
Yeah.
And so it was like, that's why I like the name, and it rhymed, you know what I mean? Scotty the Body. And also I figured I was built, but I wasn't that built, you know what I mean? Like I had a good build, but not a great build. So people could say, your build's crap, you know what I mean? So it'd be heat, you know what I mean? But instead, people now just remember saying, "Oh, you were so built back then." I'm like, I wasn't. I just photographed well.
When I watched the clips and you're talking about I wasn't the biggest and et cetera, I'm like, but he's still pretty in shape, compared to wrestling, I think today, to what we're used to seeing maybe on the independents and whatnot. I'm like, oh, he's still in better shape than a lot of wrestlers. So I get it, but I don't get it. But I guess back in those days, it was bigger and stronger and et cetera, right? So
yeah, everybody was 280 in the WWF, So, even the 5'10" guys, the guy's 5'9", 280, you know what I mean? So, and that's what Vince liked. And But that's not why I went on steroids. I went on steroids because I wanted to look like a bodybuilder. I wanted to look great. My Jewish genetics are great for brain power, but they're not great for builds.
No, for sure.
For physiques.
And then eventually you kind of linked up with Diamond Dallas Page and became Scotty Flamingo. Do you have any memories or favorite moments from being Scotty Flamingo, or were you kind of like, I don't know if this is really me?
Yeah, but I didn't know if it was really me, but that was what Dusty wanted. And like, what am I going to say? No,
Yeah.
Yeah, Dusty had big plans for me, and then Watts came in and kiboshed him. So I have real unfond memories of that. But my fondest memory, I think, was the first pay-per-view I did was Beach Blast, I think, against Pillman, and we were on first, and we went like 17 minutes. And we had a phenomenal match. Brian's an unbelievable worker. And so we had a great match. And I got back to the locker room, and there was like a line of the boys. Like, I couldn't believe it. There was literally like five or six, seven people long line coming, waiting to congratulate me because they didn't really know me. At that point, I just got in the company recently. And they were there lined up to thank me, to put me over, to put over the match, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, this is great, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because you brought him up, and I was going to obviously talk about Raven in a little bit here, like the Raven character. But to also see Pillman's progression in like 96, 97, where he also, by the time he got to ECW, was getting a little bit more grungy and whatnot. Do you kind of feel low-key might have been a little inspired by Raven?
No.
Okay.
No, Pillman didn't even. He was a genius. He's a really bright guy. He knew to change with the times. You know what I mean?
And it was working, and it was great.
Yeah, no, it was amazing.
Yeah. And then from Scotty Flamingo, you ended up in the WWF for your first run, and you were with Johnny Polo. Why do you think guys like Dusty and Vince saw you more as this speaking character rather than anything else initially?
Well, Dusty saw me as a wrestling character. Dusty had me wrestling, but then when I went to WWF, it's because of the size thing. I was like I said, I was 220 pounds in a land of 280-pound giants. And so he didn't see me that way.
Yeah.
Because when I started there, 1, 2, 3 Kid hadn't even started yet, and he was designed to be. He's still 6'1". I mean, he's not a little guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He came in like right after I came in, I think, if I remember correctly, and but he was the smallest guy in the company other than me.
Yeah, that says a lot.
And they only needed one small guy. You know what I mean? Especially with what he could do. I wasn't a high flyer. I was a ground game. I was a selling machine.
Yeah. But they always believed you could talk. Like, I feel like because they had you doing commentary, they had you managing. Was talking something you were very proud of early on in your career, that you knew that you could talk and you could cut a promo and you could get something across?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Talking was my strong suit. Unfortunately, it was also my bane, because I would always run my mouth and get myself in trouble. I would never think about what I'm saying. I would just say it and then think about it afterwards.
Yeah. And then also, like, we found out, like, at least I found out, this I didn't know, that you were actually like an associate producer for a Monday Night Raw in the early days, in your 20s. That's still like a pretty, maybe it's more of an important role looking at it now than it was maybe in 1993. You're kind of like, I want to wrestle. This is not what I want to do. How was that experience? And was there anything that you were a part of that you were proud of, or that you came up with?
Yeah, I was being groomed to be on the booking committee back when it was Pat and Bruce, before there was booking committees and booking teams and more than one booker. Pat and Bruce had been the bookers for Vince for 100 years, and Vince was grooming me to be on a booking committee. And he made me the associate producer when he heard me on commentary, when I did commentary with him, and he saw that I came prepared. I had notes and stuff. and so he put me in charge of the third run shows, All America and Mania, which are wraparound shows, which are magazine style format. Like a hard copy type of thing. You know what I mean? Where they would rerun matches, and they would have, and nothing would be first run. Raw was first run, or Superstars was first.
Yeah.
Superstars was the first. It was the first run, and then Raw was. I think Raw started back while I was and then Raw became the number one show, and everything played off of that. But I wasn't writing the main shows. I was being groomed to write on Raw and stuff. But by the time they took me, eventually they took me off TV as a character, because Vince is like, I don't really see you as Johnny Polo. There's a disconnect. I'm like, I never saw me as Johnny Polo. Shane McMahon should be Johnny Polo. He's perfect for the gimmick. So he took me off TV and just had me produce and groom me for the booking committee. And I was like, this isn't what I want to do. I want to be on TV and I want to wrestle. At least when I was on TV, I felt like I could still wrestle. I could get back into it, weave my way back into it. But being off TV as a producer, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be back wrestling, because Vince, like to keep the office separate from the in-ring talent,
Yeah.
So I quit.
And it's interesting because it's like, I don't know, because I don't know, as a kid, I'm like, I enjoyed the character, even as a manager or on TV. So it's interesting that like it was more gonna move to the office. What was your relationship with Shane McMahon? Because obviously there's all these stories about you having heat for being friends with Shane, or your relationship with Shane kind of hindered you.
Yeah, me and Shane became really good friends, and we started hanging out, and I was actually a member of the original Mean Street Posse, which were the same people, but it was the behind the scenes,
Yeah.
Like they were the Mean Street Posse before they were the Mean Street Posse, Yeah. And I was a honorary member, but so I hung out with Shane, and so I'd go out every night, till 5 a.m, and he'd come home. He'd stay at my house because it was so late. He didn't want to, and so he'd call his dad. And I used to call his dad Vic on TV instead of Vince.
Yeah.
Because it's funny. It's just an old time classic gag. But you call a guy by the wrong name, it's funny. But Shane would start calling his dad Vic, and he'd go, "Hey Vic, I'm at Johnny Polo's house. I'll be home in the morning. I'll be at work in the morning. I'll see you then. Just want to let you know I'm safe. Bye." And he'd hang up, and so it buried me hugely. Like everybody thought I was kissing Shane's ass, but I wasn't. I unfortunately was burying myself,
Yeah.
And then when I came back, it really Vince still held a grudge,
And then how I guess you guys weren't that much different in age, you and Shane. So you must have been closer in age, so it just made sense that you'd be hanging out with him more so than hanging out with Vince and Pat and Bruce. Like.
Yeah, but no, we had the same sensibilities, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was when he thought he was going to be getting the company, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he thought, he was a good kid, but then when I came back, he just had no time for me. It was sad.
What's up, everybody? This is RB here from Rain City Toys. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. Make sure you guys subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Wrestling Classic. Check out the TWC show that Justin and I do weekly. Also subscribe to Just Yappin'. Justin and I talk about wrestling and everything else that we feel like talking about. If you guys are looking for figures, hit me up. Got some old school legends right here like Rick Martel. Find some of the newer guys like CM Punk. Got some Stone Cold Steve Austin. Anything you're looking for, just hit me up. Follow me on Instagram, Rain City Toys. Hit me up on TikTok, Rain City Toys. Kind of falling behind Justin here on some followers, so let's get those subscriber count up. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. And you guys go back to the show, and hope you guys enjoy.
Let's talk about becoming Raven. So you took a bet on yourself, you quit the WWF, and you left. And then you went to ECW, and you started creating this Raven character. One thing I got from the documentary a lot is a lot of people talked about your mind for wrestling, your mind for creative ideas and coming up with things, and honestly giving you a lot of credit for pushing wrestling to where it eventually went in the late 90s. Tell me about coming up with the Raven character and what you were thinking.
I had a conversation with DDP, and we were talking about, what I should do. And And he said, you need to stop being a chicken shit heel. I'm like, but I like being a chicken shit heel. It's fun. It gets over. It gets heat. He goes, yeah, but the bookers, the people who are booking the main companies, I guess Dusty and, or not Dusty, I don't know who was booking, Kip Fry, I don't know, somebody was booking WCW, and Vince, they weren't buying chicken shit heels. You know, my ultimate goal was to end up back in WWE, you know? So he's like, you got to change. You got to be a tough guy. I'm like, but everybody's a tough guy. There's no nuance. There's no subtlety. And he goes, well, you got to think of something because, you know, he goes, I see you as this guy, like, because the way you dress, you already dress like, I already dressed like Raven originally. Like, that's how I originally dressed anyway. So, leather jacket, Doc Martens, ripped up jeans. Yeah. And he goes, you look like those chili pepper guys in the movie Point Break. Yeah. And I was like, and so that was the starting point. And that's how I give him credit for that. But he always likes to take credit for coming up with the Raven character, but that was as much as he came up with. I came up with the whole character after that. But he was great help. He got me my job in ECW. But anyway, so coming up with the character, so I was like, I want it to be dark like the Crow. And I thought, what's the Crow's name? Eric Draven, Raven. Quote the Raven Nevermore. Okay, I got a catchphrase and a name. Boom. That's settled. Then I put and that was all in like a minute, like less than a minute. So it just the inspiration, divine inspiration. And then I came up with the outfit, and or maybe the outfit first. I forget. That took like 5 minutes. You know, I knew I needed some flannel in there. So I wore flannel shirts all the time, but I didn't want to wear like a long sleeve flannel shirt to wrestle in. So I cut the sleeves off his shirt, and I tried to see what that looked like. But I looked like Big Josh. Yeah. Remember Matt Bourne's Big Josh?
I do remember Big Josh. The flannel shirts with the sleeves cut.
Yeah, so I'm like, that's not it. So I'm like, why don't I wear one of my concert tees? And then I can change the T-shirt every show that I'm on, so that there's variety in my outfits. There's always variety because I knew I was going to wear the same leather jacket because Raven wouldn't care enough to change his jacket, you know. But you still have to be a star. You got to look like a star. So I had to find a way to look like an anti-star, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? To look like a star without looking like a star.
Yeah, the star that doesn't care if he's a star, to say, like, you know,
right.
Trying to keep it low key while everyone else is trying to be the star and look the way you're like, I don't care.
Right.
And I think that was the best. That's what the Raven character gave. Obviously, they're in ECW. Someone that was behind it all for the most part was Paul Heyman, and I was curious about your relationship with him during those years. What was it like working with Paul Heyman? Did he immediately be like, because when you presented this character, like, did you love it? Like, what was that relationship?
Love Paulie. Paulie is the greatest wrestling mind in the history of the business, I think.
Yeah.
I love Paulie. You know, he meant so much to my career, you know, and he had heat. He had heat with me when I left because he didn't want me to leave. Yeah. But when I came back, there still was, let's see, when I left the second time, that's when there was even more heat, I guess. I forget exactly, but when I went to New York, he wasn't helpful to me at that point. You know what I mean? He wasn't looking out for me like he used to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, he felt betrayed, I guess. And, but, you know, I had higher aspirations than just ECW, you know what I mean? And but then eventually, you know, over time, time heals all wounds, and I guess he's heard what I know that he's heard what I've said about him, because everybody talks bad about Paulie in some capacity, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't have anything bad to say about it. I think he's a great guy, you know what I mean? He's a unique individual, you know, there's only one him, you know?
Yeah.
And the best work I ever did was with him, you know? And so because that's what I would say in interviews, you know, when people would ask about him, I'd say the best work I ever done was with Paulie, you know? He was the Scorsese to my De Niro, you know?
Yeah, and there's like, and you could see that there was like a bond between you two, and that he was a fan of the character. Like, I specifically remember that one promo where you guys are sitting like in a parking lot or a parking garage, and you're talking to each other, cutting this promo. And I'm like, oh, like, Paul Heyman loves the Raven character. You can just tell. Like, he's invested in this.
Bookers see themselves through characters. Like,
Yeah.
they see themselves through a certain wrestler's eyes. Like, Vince saw himself through Lex Luger, the Patriot,
Yeah.
and the bodybuilder, you know, so that's who he saw the world through those eyes. And Paulie saw him through Mayan and Dreamer's eyes, you know, so that was fortuitous, very fortuitous.
Yeah. And regardless of what people say about him, like, he moved a certain way, which clearly shows his longevity in the business. He's very good at playing the game in professional wrestling, so.
He's great at playing the game, and if he wasn't, but if he didn't have the talent to back it up, it wouldn't have made a difference.
100%. Let's talk about Dreamer, because obviously that's one of your greatest rivalries. The one that when people think about ECW, it either goes to Dreamer or goes to Sandman. Those are the two that I think most people think about right off the bat. What was it like working with Dreamer? What was it like coming up? Because, like, till this day, it's 2025. A lot of this was happening in 1995, 96, and people will still be like, yeah, but have you ever seen that Raven Dreamer feud where, like, they were friends since high school and there was a girl and she used to be fat, and it's like it's still talked about as an example of like a good story that wrestling should have. Do you look back at that fondly, and how was that coming up with that idea? Like, do you guys know you were doing something that was kind of different for professional wrestling at the time?
I knew Tommy. Well, first of all, Tommy, he was so game for anything. You know what I mean? Like, if you told me he needed to run his head through a brick wall, he would do it, you know?
Yeah.
He would, you know, and bless his heart, but he trusted me because I'd been around a bit. So if I had an idea and I wanted to do it, he would always, even if he thought it was the stupidest idea ever, he would go along with it because he knew that it could work because it's, you know, because I'm good at that, and B, if it didn't work, he knew I would take the heat for it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And C, because he trusted me enough. And so we had a great bond right from the get-go, you know, and we're still, you know, close enemy friends to this day. Where he likes to call us
frenemies.
Frenemies. Yeah, I guess that's the word.
Yeah.
But we're still, you know, like when I went to Baltimore to screen my documentary, he came in the night before because I was doing a meet and greet at JJ Seafood, or Jimmy Seafood, and he showed up to surprise me, you know. So that's just like that's the kind of guy he is, you know what I mean? He's a great guy, and you know, I got nothing bad to say about him.
But did you guys realize that with that story? Because at the time, like, wrestling was very, especially 95, pretty. Whatever.
That's the kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I grew up on in Florida. Because I grew up in Florida watching Florida Championship Wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, like they had Kevin Sullivan bringing a Purple Haze from Europe. He swam in from Europe apparently.
Yeah.
Like,
but it was missing at that time. So when you guys started doing it, well, those people in the 90s are like, oh, we might have not seen this before. This is a little bit more of your life. Like, is this real or is this fake? Did they really know each other as kids? Like,
yeah. So that was my idea to have us go because originally I was supposed to come in for 2-3 months and then go to Smoky Mountain and then hopefully get to New York. And then that was because Paulie didn't know what I was doing with the character. Like, he had no idea what it was going to be. Like, he thought it was going to be like a comedy version of what it is. You know, like he didn't, he just assumed because what I'd done in the past, you know what I mean? Which is part of the reason why I had to leave the WWE to create the character and go somewhere else so I could come back with it. You know what I mean? As somebody new. And, and so I was going to come in for like 3 months and feud with Dreamer and get him over, and that was going to be it. But we both realized we had something special, you know. The first promo I did, so it worked out, man. It was I think people, to me, like, that's the kind of stuff they did in Memphis. That's, you know, except it wasn't as long-term planned out in Memphis, you know, because they were always working for the Monday House, you know, the Monday Memphis show, the Monday Memphis show. But that's the kind of storylines that I love in Florida, and that's the kind of way the business started to go. Because to me, it's a soap opera. Wrestling's always been a soap opera, you know. It's just it's in a ring instead of a hospital, and emotional pain okay, like if you beat somebody up, it hurts for a little while, but you get over it. If you steal somebody's girlfriend, that'll crush the guy. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
psychological warfare is always the best. And so I knew that I had to get psychological heat as opposed to just physical heat, to really get this thing going. So to get it hot from the start, instead of, because we only had 3 months, that's what we thought. I knew I wanted a backstory with it. So I came up with the backstory of that we went to summer camp together. And then we added the thing with Beulah when I met her down in Miami. She was with Ron Gann, a friend of mine from the Atlanta Braves. And he's like, hey, he goes, hey, Raven, this is Terry. Terry, this is Raven. He's a wrestler. She used to be in wrestling. I go, really? And she goes, yeah, I used to be Pillman's sister in Calgary. I'm like, no kidding. And which nobody really knew, because I don't know why, but nobody.
I didn't know that till right now, so that's crazy.
Yeah, and it was only a couple appearances, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway, so she, so we added her into the story, and then it was magic,
Yeah, it's crazy because it's like that's the best wrestling even till this day is like when. Like, you don't even need a title if the story is good enough. Like, you don't even need
not at all
a prize if there's a personal rivalry and you've made it a little bit more of a psychological situation or there's some sort of backstory, and that always is the best wrestling. Like, even when there isn't online, if the story is good, you're more invested in the wrestling and the matches and what you can do. So that I think, and at that time, like I was saying, like it was more cartoony. It was more just by the book in the mid 90s and like go to ECW and there's like this story. And then you saw WWF and other places be like, hey, we need to do some of that because that's what people are liking. So we're gonna do this Undertaker and Kane thing. They're brothers. We're gonna do this over here. This is that. And you saw the change happen. I feel like it started with ECW. What's the lore behind Raven always surrounding himself with people, whether it was the Raven's Nest, the Flock, the Gathering? Like you always surrounded yourself with people. What's the story behind that?
Raven would have minions. He was cultish. He was a cult leader type, and so he always had a flock with him. And he wanted people to fight to do his battles for him because he was A, lazy, and B, he didn't want to get his hands dirty. You know what I mean? Like he was he would if he had to.
Motion detected at backyard cam.
He would if he had to, but he would prefer not to. And so it just and it works for the character because it takes longer to get to him. You know what I mean? Like the opponent has to get through the flock members first.
Yeah.
Get through them, and then they finally get to Raven, and then something happens and whatever, and it goes off to another thing. And then the sidekicks always end up turning on Raven, so there's even more feuds to work with. It's a simple formula, but and it also appealed to me because I'm lazy. If it was a house show, I was much lazier than on TV. I was never lazy on TV, but house shows I was lazy because it was like I blame myself for this, but it was like the old timers would always go, kid, you're working too much, you're doing too much, you know what I mean? And so eventually I stopped doing so much, and then I started becoming one of those guys going, kid, you're doing too much, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's not. And there is a common sense thing. If you do too much, you don't need to do so much, but you also don't need to do as less as I was doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I also feel like there might be like a period of your career where you should be doing too much, and then a point where you get to where you're like, now I can slow it down. I don't have to. And I think that might have been a part of that too. WCW. That's where like I initially remember first seeing you. You came in there and people knew who you were immediately when they first saw you sitting in the crowd. Came into a ton of fanfare. What are some of your favorite memories from WCW?
I loved sitting in the audience. Like that was Terry Taylor's idea, and that was amazing. Like I thought, wow, they're paying me 6 figures to watch the best show on TV. I was like, so that was huge to me. You know what I mean? Like it was such a great deal. You know what I mean? I love the promos I did when they filmed the vignettes ECW style.
Yeah.
I love those promos they did. They shot like 4 of them.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
I wasn't so fond of the ones where I had my mom involved. When it involved my fake
Yeah,
mom.
I was gonna ask you about that after. Was also like, how'd you? Because obviously in ECW, you had a lot more creative input on the Raven character and more influence on kind of the direction it went to. And then in WCW, obviously it's a different beast, more cooks in the kitchen. And then they did the whole backstory of Raven, where he ended up being like a spoiled rich kid, and really he was just an entitled spoiled rich kid that was miserable. And how do you feel about that, like creative turn for Raven?
I wasn't fond of it, but it worked in its own way. You know what I mean? And Raven was a spoiled rich kid anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not spoiled, but he would blame everybody else for his problems.
Yeah.
I tried to make him as 3-dimensional as more than any other character in the business. Like, I wanted people to be able to see, like, if Raven was in a situation, they would know how he would behave. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted him to be that, because most characters, you don't know what they're gonna do, or you just know they're gonna win, me win, you lose. You know what I mean? That's a promo. And that's what all promos are based on: is me win, you lose. And I tried to make mine more in depth, more psychologically driven, and it's also how clever can you say I'm gonna beat you up, because that's the gist of almost every promo out there, is when we get together, I'm gonna beat you up,
Yeah, no. Hey yo, it's your boy the Wrestling Classic Justin here, and I'm here to tell you guys about one of wrestling's best kept secrets for merchandise, officially licensed WWE and NXT merchandise, 500level.com. Check them out, 500level.com. Get officially licensed merchandise for the WWE, NXT, UFC, MLB, NBA, NHL. They got it all. If you join the Partnership Point program as a loyal customer, you will get discounts down the road. You can find merchandise for some of your favorite NXT stars that you can't find anywhere else. Javon Evans, Kalani Jordan, Carmen Petrovic, Lola Vice, Trick Williams. They got merchandise for everybody on NXT. You got OG shirts like this NWO shirt. You got big stars like the Queen Charlotte Flair. You get new designs like this new design for Lita. You get designs I helped out with, like this design for Dakota Kai, which I was a part of creating when Dakota didn't have those many shirts going on. You can get, like I said, NXT superstars like Carmen Petrovic and many others. You can get OGs like the none other than the Hot Rod, Roddy Piper. You can get CM Punk, Jey Uso, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, anybody you want. Sami Zayn's 500level.com. Check them out. You can even get the bad guy, Razor Ramon. You get your OG, like I said, logo shirts, NWO, WWF, Survivor Series, Raw's War. 500level.com. Check them out. Join the partnership program. Some of the best quality shirts, premium quality, regular quality. Some of the best product you will find out there. Officially licensed WWE, NXT merchandise, and OG Legend stuff. 500level.com. Check them out. Keep doing the thing. We'll see you all later. Ooh, yeah. It was an interesting turn, though, because I think we got to see this different side of Raven. There was one moment in WCW specifically that I remember. It was after, I think, Savage beat Stevie Richards. And you got in the ring, and you had a stare down with the Macho Man. And the fans were there for it. They saw something there, but nothing came out of it. Was there any other talks of you worked with the Macho Man? Did he want to work with you, or what was up with that?
No, I don't know. They just had that. I think they just wanted to tease a little heat. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it wasn't planned to go anywhere.
Yeah,
not that I know of.
The fans, I watch it back and I'm like, wow, they really popped for this. The Savage Raven stare down. It's a little different. It's something unique. And then it never went anywhere. And as a Raven fan, I'm like, oh, and a Savage fan, I'm like, that would have been cool. It would have been cool to see something between these two, like, totally opposite characters. You have one guy that's going to be going crazy, and the other guy subtly just talking, like, what is wrong with this guy? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been cool. You went back to the WWF in 2001. You were part of the Invasion storyline. You won the hardcore title a bunch of times. You were part of what many people consider the best WrestleMania 17 against Kane and the Big Show in that triple threat. Why do you feel like that run didn't work out in the long
run? It's a lot of reasons. I think I'm not. Vince just didn't get me. I guess Pat didn't get my character at all. Pat. I'm like, Pat, you're 70 years old. How are you? What are you supposed to get? You're not supposed to get it. Um, Pat didn't like the character. I sold Vince on this. Long story short, I sold Vince on this idea to the Seven Deadly Sins storyline that I started. I sold him on that, and when he heard it, he wanted me to join the booking committee again, like right then. He's like, you want to be in the booking committee? I'm like, no, I want to wrestle. That's why I left the last time. And he's like, all right, we're going to do this. And so the next week we were supposed to start it, and we didn't. And it's my fault. I should have pressured the writers to start it, but they kept pushing it off until finally, after about a month, I went to Vince and said, hey, when are we going to start this? Oh, and no. And then the first week, it was like on a Friday or something probably that I brought it up to Vince. And then like on a Monday, he goes, we're going to do this on Heat instead of Raw. I'm like, how come? He goes, Pat doesn't think you can carry the load. I'm like, Jesus. Everybody has great fond memories of Pat, and I don't, but everybody's different, But Pat was a great mind, no doubt. But I go, Pat. One day I said to him, I said, Pat, I go, you were when you were a young high flyer in San Francisco. Did anybody? What the other old timers say about you? They go, they didn't get me. They didn't get my character. They didn't get what I was doing. They would tell me to slow down, stop, but I knew what I was doing. I go, well, it's the same thing here. I go, you're 80 years old. You're not supposed to get my character. And he goes, he thought about it. He goes, I still don't get it. So he just didn't like me, is what I think it is.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so it didn't work out, So we finally got around to starting the angle. And then a couple of weeks into it, Vince just kiboshed it and I got to let go. And that's the way things go, But luckily I had TNA to fall back on. So that was good. And, so I didn't have to end my run on national TV the shitty way,
No, for sure. And like you always had a great look, even in 2000 that WWE. I'm like, this guy's like the potential was there. Like, get a great look. You look different, and it was awesome. And it was like, as a kid, I was like, this guy looks like, I don't know. We just like there was something about it. There was a special aura to it, and it sucks I never got to go that way. But TNA was great, and initially TNA was one of the hot new secondary alternative products after WCW went out of business. And then you got to go there and got to play out a lot of the stories and characters that you wanted to do. You got to work with CM Punk early in his career. How was that?
I like CM Punk. He's a great talent. He this is the same story I tell because I don't know him that well, but he thought he was the best in the business at the time, and he wasn't. But he ended up being the best in the business, so good for him.
Yeah.
So I have nothing but respect. My only thing that I would have told Punk was he should have went to Bellator instead of
UFC.
Yeah, I asked him about that, and he said the money they offered him, he had to go to UFC. I go, should have went to Bellator. You would have had a longer. I wish he would have went to Bellator and had a longer MMA career.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Because he had the hard work down for it. You know what I mean?
Definitely, yeah. What did it mean to you to win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship?
What's what?
To win the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
Yeah, that was cool. But I won it when there was no TV, and then I lost it on the first TV back. So that was kind of shitty. Or no, it was just I guess it was something like that. Or I lost it before our TV started again.
Yeah,
something like that. Wasn't the greatest run ever, but then I've had shitty title runs before. I had the U.S. title for 24 hours before I ran into Goldberg.
Yeah.
But, it's not all about the belt,
It's not. It's just the moment of being on a TV and be able to win it is sometimes what it's about. Because honestly, there's some wrestlers that have like 17, 18 reigns, and you go look at their reigns, and like they also only held it for like one day or lost it the same day, and you're like, but it still counts, and that's what people remember. They don't remember how long or this or that sometimes. So doesn't make sense. Last couple of questions, and we'll wrap this up. First things first, why did you think right now was the best time to put out a documentary? Why were you so open to sharing your story? And what do you want people to look forward to or leave after watching it? Leave with after watching.
All right, that's like 7 questions.
Yeah. Okay. So what?
What happened was Jordy, the director, he emailed me and then we started talking. He said he wanted to make a documentary about me, and he had heard me on Steve Austin's podcast and thought I was a fascinating character. His words. And he thought that I'd be a really good documentary subject. And so I asked me, and like to me, I never would do like a reality show where you have to see my personal life because it's nobody's business. But this is telling my story, you know, and I always wanted to tell my story, but I was too lazy to write a book. And by the time like I finally I didn't have the time to write a book when I was in the WWE, WCW, and it wasn't quite time for me to write a book yet. But by the time it was time for me to write a book and tell my story, it wouldn't have gotten national. It wouldn't have been it would have just been like everybody else's book. And I didn't want to just be lumped in with everybody else, you know. So when he offered me the documentary, I was like, yeah, this is pretty cool. Especially after I talked to him, because I said, look, I want it to have warts and all. I go, I want this to be, you know, a bare bones, not bare bones, a naked picture of me, you know, all my complexity, all my baggage, all my negative traits, you know. I wanted it all, you know, because I don't want to, if I'm going to tell my story, I want my story to be accurate. And I didn't want just a rah-rah piece, you know, so I think he did a great job with it. In fact, it's still like, I have early onset Parkinson's, and I have a tremor. And my tremor gets really bad when I talk about the movie because it brings up like unfond memories. You know what I mean? Like a lot of negative memories and stuff, which I want and I've dealt with a psychologist. You know, I've dealt it. I've been on the couch and laid there and spilled my guts. You know what I mean? And I'm cool with all the issues, but bringing them back up is just like ripping off a Band-Aid again and again. So it's like, So that's why my tremor, if you notice, I could be like my tremors.
Yeah.
You know, so.
Yeah.
So, and then once I'm done talking to you, it'll go away until my next interview in half an hour. And I mean, in 10 minutes. Oops, 10 minutes.
Well, you talked about that a little bit too, like how you started noticing, and now that I know that this documentary was filmed a little bit ago, it might have been before you realized you were diagnosed with Parkinson's a bit, but you're like, sometimes I get tremors and anxious when I'm talking about certain parts of your life, and you were very honest and very transparent in this documentary about your life and what you've learned through psychiatry, but also what you learned through just self-reflection and like realizing might be why I act this way or this happens. And I think there's a lot for people to take away from this. I think there'll be parts of it where people will relate to it as well. And I thought it was a really great documentary. It comes out November 18th on Amazon Prime.
Also on Vudu, YouTube, iTunes, Apple.
Yeah, check it out everywhere. Last but not least, I ask everybody this question, and I want to ask you. We ran down a lot of your career. We know that you want to do this to your kid, from the little kid that was watching Chief J Strongbow to the person that got to wrestle in all the major companies, WWF, ECW, WCW, TNA. Do you feel like you made your younger self proud? Like if you would have talked to 10-year-old,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Was there any advice you would give them if you could talk to them right now?
Don't be in such a rush to get everywhere and relax. You know, relax. It's just life. You don't have to be the center of attention. You don't need to be the center of attention. You don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. Just, you know, learn to be content. That's learn to be content. Because that was the hardest thing. I was always looking for the next big thing. You know what I mean? Like I'd go to a party and their girls wouldn't be hot enough. So I'm like, let's go to another party. You know what I mean? Like I was always trying, you know, or I would pick up a girl and then I'd see somebody hotter. So I'd try and pick her up. And then, you know, and so it's like, I was never satisfied. I was always, that's why, you know, that's why I became a drug addict. You know, it's just nothing was enough, you know, and then once I stopped doing drugs, I had to realize, you know, that life in itself is enough, you know, and be content with that. And I learned to be content, and I'm as content now as I'm going to be, you know. I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it, you know, and I hope it improves, but you know, I hope I continue to grow as a person. But if I don't, I don't, you know. I'm 61, you know, I've lived a long, hard life. You know, a rough life is more, not hard, rough.
Yeah. And it built you to the person you are today, and you've come to a place where you're somewhat more content than you ever have been, and that is
Yeah.
a great thing. Thank you so much.
I'm as content. I think I'm as content as I've ever been. That's definitely true. But I think I'm like 90% content, so that's a pretty good number, I think.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know in life if you can ever be 100% content. I think there's always something that will.
See, I'm holding myself to a higher standard again.
You are. There you go. Because I'm like, I don't think you can be, and life would be boring if you were like 100% content all the time. I think you need some like roadblocks and speed bumps and things to hit you around the way to remind you how strong you are, how far you've come, and that things that might have used to break you don't break you anymore. So even though it might bug you a little bit, you're like, wait a minute, I've gotten better at it, and I've learned from my mistakes and anything I've done. So it's a cool thing.
It's very wise of you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for doing this. I appreciate it. And it's honestly a privilege for me. I've been a fan since I was a kid. First time I saw Raven at WCW, you're on the Revenge video game. I loved that game when I was a kid. I was like, this guy's cool. He's different than everyone else. Everyone's colorful, larger than life, screaming in the camera. And then there was Raven. So thank you so much. It's a privilege. It's a pleasure talking to you. I hope everyone checks out the documentary. And I'm going to say this, I know it's talked about in the documentary. I also one day want to see you get inducted in the Hall of Fame. I'm going to put it out there from me as a fan. That'd be awesome to see. And thank you so much for your time.
The documentary is called Nevermore, The Raven Effect.
Yeah, Nevermore, The Raven Effect. Make sure you check it out. It'll be all in the description. I'll link it and everything.
Yeah, it'd be funny. It'd be funny if you plug the movie, but you never give the name of it.
Yeah, I gave it at the beginning and near the end. I gave it a couple of times. But you know the thing. I will see you all next time. Thank you so much.
It's time to say goodnight. We sincerely appreciate your patronage and hope we've succeeded in bringing you an enjoyable evening of entertainment. Please drive home carefully and come back again soon. Good night.